I'm Dave Dana, the manager of Seasons on the Fly Lodge, Jack River, and I'm here today tying some flies using the new SOF UV adhesives. I'm going to start off by tying a Chironomid pattern that's been modified over the years heavily, but very easy to tie. And I start off by wrapping on some just super small V-rib or the red Chironomid tubing that's on the market and readily available. I stretch it out. It's very temperature sensitive, so you just keep stretching it until it's about floss size. Then we're going to tie in some poly yarn. I also use Dacron because I always seem to have backing laying around my tying station, and but I'm going to use some poly yarn today. I just wet it about like 15 strands of it, and I lay it right down the back of the shank of the fly or the hook. Loop it on, and I roll it all the way down just into the bend of the hook. So I have it sticking off both ends, about an inch. And I'm going to take one piece of like lateral scale, pearl flash, pearl scale, any of that stuff will work. I'm going to tie that in down the back of the fly also.
What are you going to catch with this?
The biggest trout in the world. It's just kind of a...
Say that. I use this to catch trout. And where do you fish it at?
Yeah, so Chironomid fishing in the seep lakes, the desert lakes, over in the Columbia Basin. Kind of modified it to go fish a pay-to-play years ago. Didn't know if it was the modifications of using flash underneath the V rib was going to make a difference, and it turned out it was the only fly they'd eat that day. So I just tied all my Chironomids since then this way, but typically just for large desert trout. Okay, now we're just going to wrap the V-rib. I'm going to keep the V-rib really snug. Oop, and it broke.
Edit.
Edit. Let's go right back down there. This is chubby Chironomid. It's a relative of the tick. Okay, so we have the V-rib on there, the poly yarn, the flash. I'm going to take and go ahead and wrap the flash around the black thread. I use the black thread because it just kind of gives it a little bit of darkens the pearl flash itself. You could probably use any color thread and come up with any color combination you really wanted to. But I just wrap it, and I don't wrap it like concurrent. I leave little tiny gaps between it where I can as I wrap it forward to give it a little better segmentation. If you're out on a lake and you're seeing, midges pop off and you're in the shallows, you can actually, Chironomids are really easy to capture even with your hands, and take a look at them. You'll see how truly segmented they are, and they come in a couple different colors typically. In Washington, they're mostly olive or red. You see some black ones, but blacks are mostly, I think, mosquito larvae actually. Okay, then you're gonna wrap the V-rib, and you kind of got to be real careful when you're wrapping the V-rib. You need it to stretch as you're wrapping it on there and keep it really thin. I mean, I always kind of tie my Chironomids a little chubbier than the little skinny string flies I see people fish for Chironomid imitations in the lakes, and I think the trout just like the bigger, juicier ones better.
You're wrapping that counterclockwise.
Yep.
Explain why.
Because it's easier for me to control the stretch on it.
So say that.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so when I wrap if you notice, I wrap my V-rib. I wrap the opposite direction, and it's mainly so I can control the stretch just a little bit better than if I'm going away from myself. I can't really see how it's laying down. Give it a couple of real hard wraps right around there. So it just makes a kind of a mirage-y red, tapered body there. Now we're just going to use some dubbing I made up with black hare's ear dubbing and some That was Semperfly, ice dubbing, peacock. Just chopped it with some scissors and blended it into the black dubbing. We have two different versions. We have the thick adhesive and the thin adhesive, and there is quite a bit of difference between the two on the good side, whereas a few of the other products that are on the market, the thin is like water, and you can create a mess in your tying station with it. You know, they're a good distance away from each other as far as the viscosity of the two, the thickness. And I'm going to be using this light, which is actually isn't the one that comes with the kit itself. As you see, there's a small UV light in here, which is works great with the products. This is what's this run on? One double A, right?
I think it's triple A, but anyways, just say it runs on batteries.
Well, they both do. That was great. It runs on batteries.
I wouldn't worry about it then.
Yeah. A little bit. So I'll start over.
Remember, hold it close to the
Yeah, I will.
That's what's important.
Okay. So, anyways. So I'm using a lamp that we sell separately, and it's not the one that comes in the kit. The one that comes in the kit is a little battery operated UV light, which works great with both the thick and the thin, and you know, just runs on a regular AA battery. That's I'm not going to even say that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It just runs simply on batteries.
It runs simply on batteries, and it's a great little UV light, but it comes in the kit form with the smaller bottles, and then in the bigger bottles, you know, no light included, obviously. Anyways, I'm using the larger light here. It has an adjustable focus on it for, you know, which is going to give it, actually concentrate the beam, you know, on a small area if you're working on different size flies and stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so now I need some.
So you don't use the little hole on the top of the bottle?
I do not. I go straight into the bottle and pull it out, and I just stick my finger over the side of the bottle, pull just as much as I need out, because I'm using such a small amount on here.
Yeah.
I'm just solidifying this body and filling in the gaps. And you know what? When you first start working with UV glues and getting used to the viscosities, you really less is more, and multiple coats is better than, you know, I want to coat this whole body, but I don't want to put a ton of glue on there and try to run it back and forth on there. It's better just to do a small area and work your way forward, because like I said, as you get used to the viscosities and the different thicknesses, is it hot out? Is it cool out? It's going to change the flow of the product. So you just have to be super careful when you start out with it.
So what are you doing here?
And so I'm applying it to the back of the fly and the belly of the fly. I'm just letting it kind of run down the little ribs of the red V-rib I used. I just kind of work it back and forth until it looks like I have it solidified on there. Gosh dang it. There we go. And it is perfect right there. And you know, if your tying desk, when you're working with UV glues, if your tying desk is in a window where there's a lot of light coming in and stuff, you have to be really careful with the glue itself, not to, like, when I open them and just use a little bit. I don't use the applicator tip, And I've left a lot of it out over the years and had it come back to it all over my desk or cured in a big blob. You don't have to hit it very long. I like cooking it pretty close with the lamp.
When you're done, like put your finger in it and say, look, there's no tack. This stuff dried hard, no tack to it.
Hit the belly one more time. And so when you touch it after, you hit it with the light. I really like cooking mine quite a bit, and there's literally no tack to this glue at all, in the thick or the thin. And actually, I've tied. This is a musky fly I tied when we first got a hold of the product, and that head's done with this glue. And you can see, I mean, what is this, a year old maybe, the fly itself, and hard as a rock, and there is no tack to it at all. The durability of this product also, compared to some of the other ones that are on the market, when I tie these flies that, I build a rattle into these heads and preform all these heads myself, I've had a problem with them hitting docks and stuff and splitting when I was using epoxy especially. But even when the UV first started coming out, I tried playing with them, and they just didn't have a rock solid, hard, like plastic type fill to them. There was still a strange flexibility where they would split and crack. And fishing around structure and timber and stuff for muskie, you're always banging your flies off the cover. And I can't tell you how many times I've, not this particular fly, but my other flies, I've just pounded structure with and never really seen them crack or chip with this glue. So it's much more durable. And we're just going to spin in just a tiny bit of dubbing at the front of the fly here to build up the abdomen of the insect itself. And if chironomid fishing, while I don't do a lot of it anymore, I never got into the deep chironomid fishing. I always fished mine up more on the surface, long leaders, like not as long as some people fish, but like 12, 14 feet, greased to within an inch or two of the fly. And so the fly would sit in that first, the top part of the water column, just within an inch or two of the surface, and you'd see the fish eat them. Sometimes I'd use a little strike indicator, but I wanted the fly to stay higher in the water column, so I wouldn't overdress the flies or put weight in them like a lot of people do to fish deeper. And when you look at their the body structure of a chironomid, dubbing wax. I don't normally use it. I use spit, but for this particular one, I just got some of the UV stuff in my mouth. It doesn't taste that good. The clear goo was actually, that shit was toxic. Did I tell you that? It was completely toxic. Oh my gosh. What is this, dude?
That's dubbing weight. Write it on that.
Hold it. I know. Let me see the package of this.
It's yours. You can have it.
Shut up. That is hilarious, dude. Where did you get this?
I think the guys over at Luke. I can't remember. Gary Barnes and those guys maybe. Oh my God.
I have no idea where this dubbing wax came from, but it's a good sign. It must make deadly flies. It's tacky too. A little bit too much on there. And so you just wrap that on there and just wrap forward right up to the area where you're gonna build the tiniest head, and literally you're gonna lift up your wing, 5 or 6 wraps.
didn't just say something about this UV glue makes this fly so durable, it'll last forever, that body won't come apart?
Oh yeah, well,
And this glue is as good as there is, and it's priced to move. It's not gonna break the bank like so many of the UV glues out there. I'll cut all my audio out of this.
no, yeah, no. You should just play it like that.
Telling you what to say.
Yeah.
Time flies, Dave and his interpreter.
His interpreter. And so I'm actually going to use some of this as head cement. Just a tiny bit. Because there's not really a head on this fly. It's just a couple of half hitches, and I right up against that poly yarn, and the durability of this glue, I mean, this fly will last forever. And this just adds to its durability. Okay, so all the long strands off the dubbing I did, I'm going to trim them just a hair. Doesn't really need picked out at all. And then this yarn up, so they have antennas, or it's not, no, it's their gills, I'm sorry. So chironomids have gills that stick up off the top of their head when they're floating vertically in the water and they're swimming. This poly yarn sticking out the front, I trim it off about a quarter of the body length in the front. Trim it off so it sticks out the front like that. And in the back, they have this, they have a little claw that sticks out the back, and I'm not sure what it's for, but they do. And so I just trim off the yarn in the back really short so it's stubby, just barely sticking out like that. And it's a, great chironomid pattern.